Whites who boarded the bus took seats in the front rows, filling the bus toward the back. Blacks who boarded the bus took seats in the back rows, filling the bus toward the front. If other black people boarded the bus, they were required to stand. If another white person boarded the bus, those blacks sitting nearest to the front had to get up and stand so that a new row for white people could be created. Often when boarding the buses, black people were required to pay at the front and re-entered the bus through a separate door at the back. Edgar Daniel Nixon was one of the chief voices of the Negro community in the area of civil rights. Nixon began to openly question the segregated seating restrictions on city buses and the refusal of bus companies to employ black drivers. He and other members of the Montgomery branch of the National Association for Advancement of Colored People began to look for a test case to challenge the legality of Montgomery's segregated transportation system. Nixon felt that Rosa Parks' arrest was the perfect case to challenge Montgomery's segregated bus system.
Two policemen came on the bus, and one asked me if the driver had told me to stand, and I said yes. And he wanted to know why I didn't stand. I told him I didn't think I should have to stand up. And then I asked him, why did they push us around? And he said, and I quote him, I don't know, but the law is the law and you are under arrest. And with that, I got off the bus under arrest.
Martin Luther King Jr. became a prominent civil rights leader as international attention focused on Montgomery. The bus boycott demonstrated the potential for nonviolent mass protests to successfully challenge racial segregation and serve as an example for other Southern campaigns that followed. King was elected president of the Montgomery Improvement Association, the organization that launched the boycott. The 381-day protest sent King to national prominence. Because of his leadership role, the Montgomery Bus Boycott was the success that it was.
It was really the first time that an everyday person, not a national figure, not someone who was an existing civil rights leader, stood up and said, I'm just not going to take this anymore. I'm not going to go along with the status quo because it's stupid, it's discriminatory, it's bigoted, it's racist, and oh, by the way, I'm tired and I want to sit down because I've had a long day of work. And so I think it carried a greater impact because of the fact that it wasn't somebody famous, it wasn't someone prominent, it wasn't someone who was already working within the context of the civil rights movement. It was just a regular, everyday person coming home from work and refusing to allow herself to be pushed around by some bigoted bus driver.
The city bus system depended heavily on the African American community. Black leaders agreed to call the boycott buses on Monday, December 5, 1955, warning them of the protest. Martin Luther King and the other leaders waited nervously at a bus stop to see whether their plan would work. To their relief and surprise, bus after bus rolled by with no African Americans aboard. King asked the protesters to fight without violence. There comes a time, he says, that people get tired. We are here this evening to say to those who have mistreated us for so long that we are tired of being segregated and humiliated, tired of being kicked about by the brutal feet of oppression.
Many historians would view an event of 1955, like the Montgomery Bus Boycott, as well as the brutal killing of Emmett Till, to be two of the catalysts of the civil rights movement. So if you're saying what impact did it have, some people would say, well, this is really where you see the start of the civil rights movement. I think probably one of the most important things to come out of it, besides the use of a boycott of black people saying, look, we're going to hit white society where it hurts, which is in their wallet, and that's Martin Luther King had a famous quote that, that's where you should really try to hurt people or try to hit them, is hit them in their wallet. That's going to have an impact on them. So the boycott as an effective technique was one, and the second was, mentioning Martin Luther King, was the rise of Martin Luther King, who was a 26-year-old at the time of the movement, who somewhat rather reluctantly took on the role as a civil rights leader, beginning with the bus boycott in 1955. So I think that's probably the biggest impact on it, is that, look, black people in America in the South can mobilize together, can use nonviolence for change, and use a weapon like a boycott for change, and then it brought Martin Luther King onto the national stage.
After unsuccessful talks with city commissioners and bus company officials, on December 8th, the Montgomery Improvement Association issued a formal list of demands. Number 1, seating would be a first-come, first-served basis for all. Number 2, bus drivers must be courteous to all riders. And number 3, bus companies are to hire black bus operators on predominantly black routes. The demands were not met, and Montgomery's black residents stayed off the buses through 1956, despite efforts by the city officials and white citizens to defeat the boycott. On June 5, 1956, the Federal District Court ruled in Broder v. Gale that bus segregation was unconstitutional, and in November 1956, the U.S. Supreme Court affirmed Broder v. Gale and repealed laws requiring segregated seating on public buses.